What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be talking about the forgiveness practice that changed my life, and then I'm also going to be sharing with you 4 simple steps that you can use to forgive. Cool, let's jump right in. Welcome to my channel. My name is Christina and I help people awaken to their potential. Please click the bell button below so that you can be notified every time I upload new videos, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Okay, so like I've already said, today we're going to be talking about forgiveness, how to forgive, and then of course the 4 simple steps that I've used in my life, and then how you can also incorporate that into your own forgiveness practice. So before I jump into the four steps, let's talk a little bit about what forgiveness is and why do we even need to forgive? Okay, so first of all, what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is essentially about releasing the resentment and the anger and the tension that we're holding in our bodies because of something outside of us. So because of some person, some external event, maybe even something that we did that's in the past, and we're holding on to anger and resentment about whatever it is that happened. And basically, when we forgive, it's about releasing that anger and releasing that resentment. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're condoning the action of whatever it has happened, and it doesn't mean that you have to go back to the way that the relationship was with the person who you're wanting to forgive. So why do we forgive? So I think this one question kind of sums it up, and it's, what is the result of holding all of that negative energy, that anger, that tension, that resentment? What is the cost of holding it in your body and allowing it to fester inside of you? And when we look at it from that perspective, we can see that forgiving it's not necessarily about the other person. A lot of it has to do with ourselves, and it's about forgiving so that we can be cleansed, and so that we can be at peace, and so that we can move forward in our lives. Something that I think is very interesting is that our bodies can't tell the difference between whether or not an event is actually happening, or we are just experiencing it in our minds. So what happens is, when you think of a thought related to a specific event, your body releases the same kind of chemicals that it would as if you were experiencing the event. So just by thought alone, we trigger our bodies to go back and relive that painful experience again and again and again. And if we don't work on releasing it, then we're actually reliving that experience that was so painful for us, and we're making our bodies think that we're reliving it every day, every time we think about it. So when we decide to forgive, it's so that we can move through what we no longer want to hold on to, so that we can experience freedom and we can be cleansed from that negative experience in our life. Okay, so the practice that I'm going to be talking about today, it's called Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian practice, and essentially what it means, sort of a rough translation, is to make right. And it comprises of 4 simple steps, and just because I said they were simple, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are easy. Okay, so essentially it's about repeating 4 phrases, and this is something that you do in your head. It's not necessarily something you have to do with the other person. So you don't have to be in contact with the other person. Even if the other person has passed on, you can still do this practice. So the 4 steps are, it's about repentance, forgiveness, gratitude, and love. So they're 4 phrases that you're going to be repeating in a meditative state. And they are, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Okay, so the first thing that you might be thinking now is, oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And this kind of seems counterintuitive, because the person was the one who hurt you. Why should I be saying I'm sorry? And what happens here is a lot of resistance might come up for you. I know that when I was practicing this, resistance came up for me, and just in some of the conversations that I've had, people seem to struggle with this idea of saying I'm sorry and asking for forgiveness when they feel as though they are the ones who have been wronged, and it's not something that they necessarily want to do. So essentially, when we're saying I'm sorry, please forgive me, what you are asking for forgiveness of is the negative and the critical judgment that you are holding of that person, whether it be someone else or even if it's yourself, if you're wanting to forgive yourself. You are apologizing to yourself for the negative effects that holding that critical image of the person is causing to your body. So you are apologizing for holding on to that negativity, and in doing so causing your body pain. So that's the first thing. When you're apologizing, you are not saying that what someone else has done is okay. You can look at it as apologizing to yourself for hurting yourself by holding on to the negativity, by storing that in your body, and by you allowing yourself to be the vessel of anger and negativity, which essentially is hurting your body. So it's not an empty apology. I think what's really important is you need to sit into, and actually really feel the emotions of saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And I think the only thing that I can really say is you'll only know what it feels like if you try it. And really, you have nothing to lose. This is something that you do completely by yourself. It's not something that anyone has to know about. And I mean, what do you have to lose? Why not try? So I think what was really cool for me was feeling the movement and the release that happened in my body from engaging in that sort of apologetic state, and really feeling what I was saying. So you might need to repeat it over and over until you really get into it, until you feel it. So then the thank you, that is about going into a space of gratitude, that elevated emotion of gratitude. And then the I love you is about recognizing that we are all connected, we are all one, and it's about going into that space of universal love, compassion, and connectedness. Okay. So those are the 4 steps, but how do we do it? So I would suggest going into sort of like a meditative state. So maybe you sit down with your eyes closed. You could do something like light a candle, maybe play some music. You could play some music with no lyrics, or even like some binaural beats. I'll put the link of some music below that you could potentially use. But basically what you do is you go into a space in your head and you imagine the person in front of you, and you go through the process, and you are the one who starts the process. So you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. They acknowledge that they forgive you. Thank you, I love you. And then the reverse happens. So the person then says it back to you, and then after that you embrace. If you find the idea of imagining the person in front of you and saying these things, if that doesn't feel safe for you, or it's not something that you feel comfortable with, you can imagine it in a different way. So whatever way would make you feel comfortable. Maybe you decide that you would like to have this conversation and this dialogue with yourself, and you have this conversation with an aspect of yourself, and maybe it's the aspect of yourself that's holding the pain and holding the resentment, and you say, I'm so sorry that you have been having to hold on to this anger and this resentment and what it's doing to you, and you have that dialogue with yourself. So you can kind of choose, if it doesn't feel comfortable for you to have the other person in front of you, you can choose how you would like to engage in the dialogue. Okay, so you practice this over and over until you really start to feel it, and maybe you feel some release. Okay, so that is the basics of the meditation, but now I'm going to be sharing with you 3 ways that you can implement this practice into your life. So the first is how I would suggest getting started with it, and this is just as small things come up in your day that like trigger you, how can you incorporate this practice? So maybe someone cuts you off in traffic, or a co-worker is like really frustrating you at work. You can, in that moment, or at the end of the day, decide to go through the practice and practice forgiveness for that person. And this is just so that you don't you don't hold on to that anger for the rest of the day. I know sometimes like maybe someone frustrates you and it kind of like it ruins the rest of your day. You're just like holding on to those feelings and you can't seem to get past it. So if you ever experience that, this is a really great way to release, let that go, and then continue on with your day, and sort of work past that. So that's one way, in the moment. Then also in the moment is maybe if you're having a difficult conversation with someone, in that moment you can repeat like a mantra in your head. You can either repeat the 4 steps in your head, but if that's too long, you can just repeat, I'm sorry, I love you. I'm sorry, I love you. I'm sorry, I love you. And while you're repeating this like a mantra in your head, you may find that some of the tension in the conflict, it actually starts to dissolve, and you may actually have a different outcome. Then you can also do it as a daily practice, where at the end of the day, you sort of scan through your day. Is there anyone that I feel like I need to forgive? And then you do the practice at the end of the day, and it becomes sort of a daily routine that you get into. Okay, and then the other way is to do it in more of a big batched out session, where maybe you block out 1 to 2 hours, and you go through a list of people who you'd like to forgive. And this may require a little bit of preparation. Maybe you sit and you write down all the people who you'd like to forgive, for really, really small things, and then obviously you can build up to some of the bigger things. So this could be things like school teachers, peers, friends, people who you bumped into in the street, people in traffic, your co-workers, your boss, maybe your family members, and then you can build up to people in your life who have really hurt you. So you'll go into the meditation, and you can do it in a couple of different ways. You can either sort of have a structured way that you'd like to go about it. You'd like to start at the beginning of your life and sort of work through the years of your life and apologize like that, or you could do it in more of an intuitive way, where whoever comes up first, and then the next just comes up, and you work through the list like that. Or maybe if you want to get into the rhythm of it, maybe you start with someone small, someone who it would be easy to forgive them, and you work your way up to the ones that feel more challenging and you are more triggered by. Cool. So that is the way where you group it all together. And then I've also discussed how you can do it in the actual event or as a daily practice. So those are 3 ways that I would recommend incorporating the practice into your life. So the thing that I think is really cool about this practice is because you are healing your internal, you're working through your energy blockages, and you're kind of healing the critical and the negative projections that you are putting onto other people and you're putting out into the world. Sometimes what you will find, and this has definitely been the case for me, is I've gone through the practice and I've gone through the forgiveness, and then when I come back into the relationship, it's almost like the relationship is completely shifted and completely changed because of the way that I am now coming back into the relationship. So understanding that we can't change other people, we can only change ourselves. But by changing ourselves, the new way that we are and the new way that we come into certain situations may actually change the dynamics of a relationship completely. So I think what was really cool for me was to go through the practice, working through certain people in my life and forgiving them, and then stepping back into my relationships with those people and seeing how things had changed and seeing how much smoother things were, because I wasn't as hurt and as triggered in the relationship. So it's quite a transformational process, and it's super cleansing and super freeing for you, but it also has the potential to heal some of the relationships in your life. So having a forgiveness practice like this does not necessarily mean passively sort of ignoring what's going on in your life. I understand that there are certain circumstances where you need to actually take action, and I'm not saying that you should just passively accept any behavior that is harmful or abusive, and any time that you need to actually take action, especially if there are any criminal or legal sort of implications involved. I very much understand that physical action needs to be taken, but what we're talking about here is allowing yourself the process to heal and to cleanse yourself. So in addition to any action that you need to take, this practice is about working through the emotions that you do have and working to cleanse and heal your body so that you no longer have to feel a certain way. Thank you so much for letting me guide you through this video. I would love to hear about your experiences with this Ho'oponopono practice, and then if you have any other suggestions of forgiveness practices that have worked for you, I'd love to hear about them. Share them in the comments below. Let me know if you're going to be doing the long haul, the bulk meditation, or if you're going to be wanting to incorporate this as more of a daily practice. I'd love to know. Share your experiences with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please click the bell button below so that you can get notifications every time I upload a new video. And then if you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.